All right, I'm unmuting all the speakers, and I'm going to get us started. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's webinar on ELDs. My name is Amy Toner, and I'm the VP of Publishing and Digital Content here at NATSO. NATSO is thrilled to have DES as a partner in providing the webinar this morning. Their support as a Chairman Circle member is critical to providing this type of timely information. As a few housekeeping reminders, everyone's lines are muted. Please submit your questions via the chat section, and the team at DES will answer them at the end of the presentation. Also, today's presentation is being recorded and will be posted on NATSO's website. This morning you'll hear from a host of experts at DES and Jay Keller, starting with Gordon Price from DES. Now it's my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Gordon.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. As Amy had indicated, we're all excited to have this opportunity to share with the industry the information on the ELD mandate, and along with that, more product specific. We have a panel of some people that have a great depth of knowledge of what this means to our industry, and also as far as what products are available and how to go to market with this particular category. On board, we're fortunate today to have Tom Bray of J.J. Keller, Jeff Peters of J.J. Keller, Tyler Schneer of DAS, and Derek Lehman of DAS. So I want to thank all those guys in advance and turn it over to Derek Lehman of DAS. Or do you want to go with Tom?
Tom and Jeff.
My apologies. We'll start with Tom. We'll start with you at J.J. Keller.
All right, that sounds good. We'll go ahead and get started. What we're going to do first is I'm just going to lay down some basic groundwork of what this is all about and what it means to your customers, basically, what they're going to be grappling with and what they have to do, and things along those lines. And then we're going to take a look at different options, different things the systems can do, and that's where Jeff's going to start taking over a little bit and discussing those types of issues. So let's go ahead and get started with my part of the presentation. And first off, some industry insights. Who does this impact? Well, there's about 3.5 million commercial drivers in America that are going to be impacted by this rule, directly, indirectly, some of the time, all the time. But that's the total audience. When you look, there's 1.5 million to 2 million that over-the-road type drivers that clearly need to be using these devices. So it is a large market. So, and it comes with an interesting cost-benefit analysis. The big thing with this is that it's the cost of devices up front, but in the long term, it's actually going to save the driver or the carrier some money. And the net savings between the direct savings that are going to be seen and the reduction in accidents, violations, other things, they're figuring it's over a $2 billion impact. So it makes a big difference. And as far as the timeline, because that's kind of the big question that everybody likes to talk about at this point. Basically, all drivers that presently use paper logs, with a few exceptions, which we'll talk about in just a minute, are going to need to be using an electronic logging device by December 18th of 2017. That's the big deadline. There's a lot of confusion because there's a secondary deadline, but this just has to do with an update that has to be done to software. The key big deadline that matters is December 18th of 2017. So what ends up happening at that point, the driver needs to use an electronic log that's either an AOBRD or an ELD, or the two different types of systems, but they have one thing in common. They're getting data from the vehicle to decide when the driver's driving. So that's kind of the key thing that makes the AOBRDs what they are, it makes the ELDs what they are. And then the other thing that happens on the December 18th deadline is any device that's placed into service past that date has to be one that's on the FMCSA's ELD registry, which they're putting together as we speak. So up until December 18th, 2017, a carrier can buy a device that's not on the registry so long as they get a letter from the manufacturer as part of the purchase that says that it is an automatic onboard recording device. So that's how things are handled now. The registry requirement kicks in December. The other deadline that's out there, December 16th of 2019, that just has to do with when the devices that are AOBRDs have to be upgraded and meet the ELD technical standards. So that's strictly just a software update date. So that's what happens as of that deadline. It doesn't have anything to do with when drivers have to start using them. It just has to do with when the old devices need to be updated. Now, what is an electronic logging device? What makes it such a thing? Basically, it automatically records the driver's driving time. That's the key point. I mentioned that just a minute ago, that it grabs data from the vehicle to determine when the driver's driving. And what it does is, at that point, is it assigns that driving time automatically to the driver that's logged into the device. And basically, it's an accurate recording of when the driver was driving. Non-driving activities, the driver enters those manually. In other words, he tells the device, I'm on duty, I'm off duty, or I'm in the sleeper berth. But the driving part's got to be an automatic function. What makes it an electronic logging device, or a true ELD, is that it meets all the technical specifications that are in the ELD rule that was published December of 2015. And there's about 120 pages of technical standards that are involved there. We're not going to get into those. That's something that software programmers and people like that get excited about, but those of us that just use the devices or sell them don't really need to worry about those very much. Now, what else does it take to make an electronic logging device? Well, the big thing that's changing with the new standards, the old devices had to be integrally synchronized with the vehicle. They didn't specifically say how. The new ELDs, one of the technical standards that does make a difference to everybody, is that it's got to be connected to the ECM. That's where it's got to be getting the data from. It's got to have a connection to the engine control module and get the data. It also has to be listed on that FMCSA registry site that we mentioned earlier. Now, the way the systems are typically set up, there's going to be a black box, and ours is typical for this, and so are the other manufacturers you're going to hear from today. There's a black box that connects to the vehicle to get the required data from the ECM. The driver will have a handheld display. That display will be wired or wirelessly connected to that black box. And the black box is getting the vehicle data and feeding it to the driver's device, and that's where the calculations and all those types of things are taking place. The third component in any of these systems is going to be a back office system, whether it's back office storage or a website that's storing the log data for the driver. There's a back office somewhere that's storing this information after it comes off of the vehicle. The driver only has to have today and the previous 7 on his display, but the back office has to retain the records for 6 months. So there's data that has to be retained in the background. The system has there's a lot of downloadable data that's moving, or pardon me, a lot of data that's moving around in these systems. As far as what the device is doing, it's doing that with the vendor software basically. But what has to happen is when the data is sent out from the device, it's got to be sent out in a certain format. That's one of the ELD requirements, so that officers and auditors can use that data directly into their, or can bring that data directly into their systems and use it. So now, as far as the AOBRDs, I mentioned them a couple of times, and as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be phased out. That's what that December 18th of 2019 date is about, because a lot of this stuff that we've talked about, as far as the downloadable data file linking directly to the ECM, being listed on the FMCSA's website, that's not true about the AOBRDs. The AOBRDs are a lot simpler. The vendor gives you that letter, so that they're going to be updated, and that December 2019 date has to do with them. One of the big questions about this is who must comply with this? Who does this apply to? Because that's probably the #1 question I know both Jeff and I are getting anymore is, does this really apply to me? Well, basically, it applies to anybody that's operating a commercial motor vehicle that's subject to the hours of service regulations. Well, the first part of that, the hours of service regulations, are applicable to commercial motor vehicles that weigh 10,001 or more, either single or combination, any vehicle that's placarded for hazmat, any vehicle that is hauling 9 or more for compensation, or any vehicle that's hauling 16 or more, irregardless of compensation. So those are the vehicles that are commercial motor vehicles and then subject to the hours of service regulations. Now, as far as, the exceptions go, I mentioned there are a few. Well, 100 air mile drivers and 150 air mile drivers, what's unique about them is they don't do logs. They do time cards instead of logs typically. This won't apply to them because they're going to be using their time records yet. They're not going to be using logs, so that's not an issue for them. Those trucks won't need a device in them because the driver driving the truck is a 100 or 150 air mile driver, doesn't have to log. They keep time records instead. The drivers will be allowed to use paper logs if they only have to log 8 or fewer days during any 30-day period. So that's like your intermittent drivers or your short-haul driver that occasionally has to log. Those drivers, so long as it's 8 or fewer in a 30-day period, they can just use paper logs. They don't have to switch to an ELD. Now, drivers doing certain driveway tollway work are allowed to continue using paper logs after the deadline. And those are drivers that are driving a vehicle as part of a driveway tollway, or that are driving or towing an RV that's part of driveway tollway. What driveway tollway is, just a sidebar quick, you're delivering the vehicle, so the vehicle is the shipment. And drivers that are driving vehicles older than 2000 don't have to switch to an electronic log. They'll be able to continue using paper logs. Just despite what rumors say, there's certain things out there, people saying these are exempt, that's exempt. Pretty much what we covered there are all the exemptions. There's no exemption for the non-CDLs, drivers, the drivers at small companies or the owner-operators. There are no exemptions for them. If they don't qualify for one of the exceptions we just talked about on the last slide, they have to be using an ELD. Now, how do these things work? Well, just without getting too far into the technical requirements, there's automatic data captures that are done at certain times. They're on the slide there. And the data capture includes date, time, location, engine hours, engine miles. There's just certain things that have to be captured. And when those data captures are done, that's half of the system, which I call half of the record. The automatic duty changes that are done are basically whenever the vehicle hits 5 miles an hour, the device has to go to driving. Whenever the vehicle stops, it's got to go to on duty, and the driver can make other changes and tell the device I'm not on duty. So that's kind of the basics. That automatic function, those automatic functions, combined with the driver's entries, make the record up. Once the record is complete, the driver has to submit it within 13 days. Now, there's quite a case for using these devices. There's several different things that come into play here when you look at this. FMCSA did a study and found a 50% reduction in violations when a carrier switched 2 hours of service violations when a driver switched. But more importantly, they saw an 11 to 12% drop in crashes, which is a huge number for any fleet. They also saw a 90% decrease in speeding incidents, and that's one of those things that when the driver's aware that that's records being generated, they tend to, for lack of a better term, behave a little better. Other things that change that carriers see when they use the system and use all the different options that are in it, they'll see improved fuel mileage. So that makes a huge difference in the number of gallons burned through the truck, and that therefore has a lot to do with cost. And the tracking also leads to better routing. That gets you more into the technical aspect of routing. So, and it can be integrated in and used with your routing software and our service or dispatch software. Now, as far as the different solutions go, there's different features for the larger operations. So when the owner operator is the small guy, what they're going to be looking at, and Jeff, I'm going to lean on you to start weighing in on some of this now. The owner operators, they want to comply with the hours of service limit. That's what they want. They want electronic DVIRs when they figure out that they can have those. They also want some instant messaging and communications capability, not with the company because they're an owner operator, but with their own network basically. And they're looking for different things than you would be looking for if you were a large fleet. Large fleets, they're looking for fully integrated systems that work with their maintenance software, that work with their dispatch software, that work with their driver performance tracking, and they want critical event tracking. They want alerts, so they want a lot more options built into their systems. The key takeaway from my part, and this is what you need to work with your customers on, if your driver's doing logs now, he's probably going to need to switch to an electronic log, and the date that it's got to be done by is December 18th of 2017. That's kind of the short version of everything that I've talked about. And with that, I'm going to kind of pass it over to Jeff. He's going to take over for the next section here.
All right, thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Peters. I've been with J.J. Keller for over 20 years, primarily responsible for the truck stop industry here at J.J. Keller. First of all, I want to thank NATSO and DAS for this opportunity to speak with you about the J.J. Keller ELD solution. Before I get started, I'd like for you guys or for everyone to write down 2 websites. These websites are kellerencompass.com and ELDguidance.com. These two websites will be very good reference for you and your staff. They have information videos, webcasts, white papers, frequently asked questions, and much more. Again, those websites are kellerencompass.com and ELDguidance.com. Next screen. There are two basic types of ELDs out there. The dedicated unit, primarily used for the larger trucking companies, and then the BYOD, bring your own device. Those are going to be the audience that you folks are going to be entertaining, small trucking companies and owner-operators. A few things to consider when making your ELD selection. Be prepared. Is the unit self-certified? Tom talked about that. After December 18th, that's when it matters. FMCSA website page will have all those approved vendors for an ELD. Is it an established brand or a startup? Be careful with those startup companies. Look for a company that's been in the business for a long time. Is there a customer support number or contact available at all times? That's pretty important. If your customer is out there down the road and has some issues, is there a support number that they can call and talk to a human being? What does the hardware do? How does it plug in? Do you need a second device? Is there a subscription plan? And what the subscription plan covers. Here are some of the solution offerings in DAS's portfolio. Now on to J.J. Keller ELD. This is a big change in your industry. Will you be ready for the rush? J.J. Keller has been supplying the truck stop industry with DOT and hazmat compliance for over 60 years. We've been selling the ELD unit to the transport industry for over 17 years already. So we are ready to help you with this opportunity with a name that was well recognized in the industry. J.J. Keller's ELD is simple to install and easy to use. Roughly 80% of the drivers today use smartphones. The J.J. Keller ELD Bring Your Own Device solution is positioned perfectly for these drivers because they are compatible with the iPhones, iPad, and Android devices. Our in-house transportation experts have 220 years of combined regulatory experts. This is important. They closely monitor regulations and work with federal and state agencies. This means the compliance intelligence in our ELD solution is always based on the current DOT regulations. It's always going to be up to date. Updates are done on the fly with no hardware swap outs. Next. J.J. Keller's Encompass E-Log service plan includes all the things that you see here. That's going to be that top part there. You can kind of go over all the different things that the ELD comes with. There is no yearly contract. That's important. No yearly contract or a long-term commitment with J.J. Keller's ELD log. This is a monthly service only. The added automated fuel tax is going to be very important, and I think an attractive add-on for your customers, and I'll explain that later. You can see if they add on the automated fuel tax, it's going to cost an additional $10, and then the three things that are added on, including everything above. Next. On this page, you can see that the J.J. Keller ELD system retails for $239. This includes one device, either a 6 or 9 pin. J.J. Keller offers all 5 adapters, and we'll show you that later on, and DAS does as well. Again, I mentioned this is a monthly service, not an annual service. You can look at the monthly subscription. It's going to be, we are the lowest monthly subscription out there of $10.95 per month. If they add on the IFTA package, which is again going to be a pretty nice feature for them, it's going to be an additional $10, make it $20.95 per month. The move to e-logs is easier with J.J. Keller's mobile platform, which allows you to adopt our system with less hassle, less cost than the dash mounted systems. The J.J. Keller mobile logging app receives data from the J.J. Keller ELD, so the drivers can track their duty status, monitor hours available, have access to 15 different state and industry rule sets. That's pretty important. So we're pretty flexible with all the different rule sets out there, and Tom can, if you have questions about the rule sets, Tom can answer more on that. And receive alerts on impending hours of service violations. When the J.J. Keller ELD is purchased from your store, the driver will be instructed to call J.J. Keller customer service to help them with the setup process. This is pretty important. We're not going to leave them in the dark here. They're going to call a physical human being, and we're going to walk them through the whole setup process and make sure they're up and running correctly. They will also be given the option at that time to add the automated fuel tax reporting. Fuel tax reporting is a time-consuming process for these drivers, and having J.J. Keller's automated fuel tax will save them time and money. This will be a very valuable add-on for these drivers. Your J.J. Keller ELD will come in a retail box, which includes the electronic logging device you see here and the connecting cable. There are 5 ECM or diagnostic connecting harnesses available. You can see those on the bottom. We're recommending that you carry the 6 and 9 pin right now. Those are going to be the most popular for your audience. In the future, as trucks are manufactured in 2018, the 9-pin high-speed, that's going to be that green one in the middle, that's going to be become more popular, and all the drivers will need to do is buy that. If they have a new truck, they transfer their ELD to that new truck and then buy the high-speed 9-pin. Right now, I don't think that's something that you should carry until, you know, a year down the line here. Other options for you will be the OBD2 connectors. Those are going to be for your construction fleets that have the F1 250s with a trailer on the back. There might be some other opportunities. DAS is going to have available all of those. The 6 and 9 pin are in stock. The others are going to be special orders. So if you have those opportunities that come up, make sure you contact your DAS sales representative.
All right, so I'll take over. I got it. So my name is Tyler Sterner. I'm a category manager here at DES, and I'm going to go over the 3 other options aside from J.J. Keller that we're going to be assorting for this mandate. As we go through each slide, I'm just going to point out some of the key things to note that are going to be important in making your ultimate buying decision. So the first vendor that we're going to carry is from Garmin, and the product name is the Garmin E-Log, and this one, along with all the ones that we're going to present today, are all going to be FMCSA compliant. So there's going to be no worries there. So a couple things to note about the adapters for Garmin. They're going to have 2 that actually come with the product in the box, the 6-pin and the 9-pin, which, as Jeff said a moment ago, are going to be, for this market, probably 90–95% of the market. So with those 2 in the box, it should pretty much cover any need that you might have. The next important thing to note about the Garmin is that it's going to have no monthly subscription fees for the end user. That's a pretty tangible advantage that they're offering, and something that you should definitely consider. And with that, you not only get the hours of service, the driver vehicle inspection reports, but they also throw in the fuel tax agreement logging and monitoring of that as well. So a little different from the other ones is there's no cloud backup for Garmin, so you'll either need to plug the unit in via USB or connect to their app on either an Android or iOS phone. And another thing to note is that while those are the only ways that you can retrieve the data, you can also link the device to any of their diesel units. So the new the 780 and the 580, when those comes out, those will be loaded with that already, and then they're going to be doing an update on like the 570 and the 770, so those are kind of backwards compatible. So you can display things like hours of service and like that on those devices. So again, this kind of illustrates what the pricing looks like. So with no monthly subscription costs, their upfront cost is $249, which is a little bit higher than everyone else. But their main point here is that you're going to make that up with not having to pay the subscription fees. Another thing to note is that this ELD is kind of the only one that isn't available now. They're actually launching this in September of 2017. Is that meaningful? Probably a little bit, yes, because you probably will, over the next few months or so, want to have some sort of a product assortment just to represent the category. But obviously, come September, I would try to save a home for this piece. Again, this just kind of goes through all the things that come along with their ELD, so hours of service, the driver vehicle inspection report, the fuel tax agreement, all those kind of main features. This kind of shows you how things will look on the app. So you can see that top left one has the hours of service, those top two actually. The bottom left has the driver vehicle inspection report. Bottom right, an international fuel tax agreement. So you can kind of see how those would look on the app itself. Which takes us to Rand McNally. So Rand McNally is available now in two different versions. It's called the ELD 50. One of them will be an ELD 59 pin, and they're going to have a separate SKU that will be an ELD 56 pin. So within those two SKUs, although it's two separate SKUs, most of the volume will come from the 9 pin, and then it might be a good idea to just carry the 6 pin as a special order item or for those small subset of customers that they're going to need that device. It will pair with any of their new tablets, so like the 8 Pro or the 7 Pro, and also their upcoming GPS units. So like the TND 540, the TND 740 will all have the app built into the device. So just like the Garmin, you can kind of display things like hours of service and that sort of thing. But then again, you'll need the app, and then they also utilize the cloud for backing up things. That kind of just shows the system. So you just plug in the ELD device, you can link into your GPS or tablet, back up ultimately on the computer, and then you can print out reports and anything that you might need along those lines. And their plan, they have two plans. The first one is $19.99, and that's really everything that you need just to be compliant with the ELD mandate. So hours of service, the DVIR, messaging, mapping, that sort of thing. And then for $5 more a month, which is the core plan for $24.99, the main thing you're going to add there is the IFTA logging and monitoring in that. Again, this is just kind of breaking down all the individual components of each plan, so hours of service, it talks all through those little points, and the same thing with the core plan on that side. The next option, last option from our assortment will be from Stone Ridge. If you're not familiar with Stone Ridge, which I'm guessing most of you are not, we do want to point out that they've been in the compliance industry for over 40 years, and they've actually gone through an ELD mandate in Europe. And they're actually one of the leaders in that market. So they have a very extensive knowledge in working through these kind of mandates and developing products that are best equipped to deal with them. Last year they did about $750 million in annual revenue, and they have over 4,300 worldwide employees. So just because you haven't heard of them doesn't mean that they're not kind of a major player in this market. Another neat kind of component to them is they have all the connectors in the box. So whereas Garmin has the 6 pin and the 9 pin, they're going to have all of them. So they have the 6 pin, the 9 pin, and then the OBD2 for the Volvo and the light and medium duty vehicles. And when the device comes, it'll already be kind of hooked up to be the 9 pin, and then you just easily switch out those other adapters as you need them. And then the bottom of those, it kind of gives you a kind of roadmap of what kind of vehicles would take a 9 pin or a 6 pin, et cetera. This is just a quick picture of what it would look like installed in your cab of your truck, and it just quickly, just easily within a minute connects into that little vehicle port there. So it's very easy to just insert and exert. And this kind of explains the process. So those are all the things that are in the box. They have kind of a patented system that they're working on where you can actually scan a QR code, and that'll automatically link the app and the device together. So you can get it out of the box, hooked up, ready to go with the app within a minute as well. So that's a pretty nice feature. And then ultimately, like all the devices, it'll ultimately connect to your computer to run the reports and all those sorts of things. Their unit costs $149.99 for the actual device itself, which I'll go back and say that that's the same with Rand McNally as well. Both of these devices are $149.99. And then their monthly subscription fee is below. It's $15 a month, and then if you wanted to sign up for an annual plan, you could do that, and that would be $150. So if you did that, you would save $30 over the first year. And just like the other ones, these are all kinds of features that they're going to have. So real-time GPS tracking, hours of service, driver hours available, mileage, those sorts of things all come within that portal. This is just a snapshot of the vehicle tracking and the kind of history that you're able to pull up using their software. And this is probably one of our favorite slides in the deck. Is really just comparison of the 4 models. I mean, I don't know that we can give you a hard and fast answer of the best unit that you should purchase, because each one has a very compelling story. And so this is just a quick slide to kind of show you all the differences, in a lot of the cases, all the similarities between all the devices to help make an informed buying decision. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek Lehman, who's going to talk about the marketing and merchandising options.
Hi. So I'm going to just pick up where Tyler left off on this differentiated, the slide that kind of showed the trade-up, so to speak, of the different products. And as we're working in-store and designing the merchandising solutions, we really try to take this story and communicate that to the shoppers, because there is such a breadth of solutions in this, this category. So I'm going to talk a little bit about merchandising solutions, where we're at today. So currently, logbooks live in the stationary set. Walk in any travel center across the country and you pretty much see pens and logbooks side by side. So we're starting to think on the path to purchase, how are the drivers, how are they shopping this category, how are we going to make them aware of this solution. So we kind of approach it from a path to purchase as they walk in the store through the transaction counter, and we look at 4 key areas. We're looking at the pro driver entrance, where they're coming in and out. We're looking at the end caps, the electronics case, where they're purchasing a lot of their higher ticket items, and then we're also looking at our inline traditional stationary set. So these are all conceptual. We're working to get these finalized, but this gives you a pretty good idea of exactly where we're going to be headed. First and foremost is pro driver entrance, walking in the store, staying compliant, and putting some sort of static cling on there to create awareness of the fact that this deadline is quickly approaching. That December 18th date is only a few months away. Secondly, end caps. So as they're walking the perimeter of the store, as they're on their way to the restroom, to the showers, to grab something off the shelves that they may need, an end cap would be a great place where we're calling out mobile office and providing them a trade-up story with not only the stay compliant with that 12/18 date, but also talking to them about the different options available in store. The electronics case is a natural fit because you're putting a lot of your other high-ticket items in there, like your GPSs, your Bluetooth headsets, et cetera, and that would be a great place. For that area, we have easels that would sit on the shelf and provide the product features and benefits of each of the devices, but then also a static cling that would work on the front of the case to kind of showcase, once again, that trade-up story. And then finally, as we look at the inline traditional stationary set, look at converting that potentially to a mobile office call-out and having the trade-up story there, because once again, they're already going there for the traditional logbooks, which are going to be good for the next 6+ months. But as they're looking to buy that, we're also trying to put in their mind, hey, this is something I'm going to need to be aware of and need to start taking action on it. So really, our in-store merchandise is going to focus on 2 key areas. It's around the stay compliant with the ELD mandate, first and foremost. And then once we kind of get in their mind with the staying compliant, we want to talk to them and provide a compelling, comprehensive trade-up story that basically showcases the various features and devices, and also look at the total ownership. So part of it is not only looking at the cost of what the unit costs today for the physical unit, but also when you look at a 3-year plan, 3 years when you're adding monthly contracts and things like that, what's my true cost of ownership of that? And, you know, utilizing various tools like the static clings, the info panels, and just a whole trade-up story. And then as we talk about marketing, just to touch base on that, how we're going to approach that, we are going to have a fall gear campaign that's going to kick off August and September timeframe. We're going to start with a fall gear guide. It's created by Randall Riley, and it's branded with Trucker News Overdrive. It's going to be an interactive digest featuring editorials, product featurettes, banner advertisements, embedded videos, as well as various trucker appreciation tributes, And this ties into how we approach the ecosystem of marketing, where we're targeting our Road Pro audience or leveraging our Road Pro audience via social media, et cetera, tying in with the gear media, in-store activation, and then also tying in with our retailer reward program, whether it's our Road Pro Rewards or in partnership with other existing partner loyalty programs that our partners may have. And then as we look further into that with the Road Pro Family of Brands community, things like Facebook gamification, doing video campaigns, Road Pro Rewards, getting special points around ELD purchases, gear with Overdrive and Trucker News, and then also tying in with GATS at the Discovery Pavilion for 2017. Video and interactive demos and actually touching, seeing live product on display and talking to subject matter experts. And at that, I turn it over to any questions that the team may have.
Okay, this is Amy. I'll just remind everyone that they can submit their questions, and while we're waiting a bit to see if anyone comes in, I want to make sure I wasn't on mute. We did get a few questions asking if the slides will be available, and the answer is yes, absolutely. I will post them as well as the video on our website, and I'll send out a link to everyone that registered. I know it's a lot of information. Just give it another second or two to see if we get any more questions. All right, this is a question for you guys. Is there an issue with the packaging for the Canadian market on the Stone Ridge unit?
There should not be. They're going to meet all the requirements to allow for Canadian export and selling over there. So there should be no issues.
Okay. When will they be available?
Stone Ridge is available now. Rand McNally is available now. J.J. Keller should be available in June, and then Garmin will be available in September.
Okay. Yep, just a reminder that I'm going to send out the presentation afterwards. It'll be posted on our website, and I'll also email it out as a PDF, and we also recorded the webinar today. Okay, I think that's the end of the questions. You see Gordon's information if you have any questions, and my name is Amy with NATSO, and my email is atoner, A-T-O-N-E-R, at natso.com, and my phone number is 703-739-8570. Oh, I got one more question. Let's do it. How many units do you foresee moving in year one, say between June this year and June next year?
So, I mean, that's probably the million-dollar question. So, I mean, I personally think that you have to have a representation now just to show the category. And so for the early adopters that come to the stores, you have something to appease them. With that said, just like kind of the Bluetooth headset mandate 9 or 10 years ago, until the mandate actually reaches the actual enforcement date, you don't get a ton of early adopters. So, I mean, you will probably sell a few hundred over the course of the next few months, but come probably November, when you get like a month out, I expect kind of sales to explode, and you really have to be prepared for that. And how many units will you sell? I mean, that's the big question. So, I mean, how we try to gauge them from our end is try to identify the overall market size. How many actual drivers are you targeting? Of that number, how many of them do you think are actually shopping in your stores and would potentially buy it in your unit? And then at that point, if you're carrying 3 models, you kind of have to gauge, or 3 or 4 models, you have to kind of gauge how you think that'll break out. So if you think Garmin will do X, Ray McDonald will do the X, J.J. Keller will do this, Stone Ridge will do this, and that kind of will determine kind of the percentage of each SKU that you should have in stock. And then it's really about when that mandate comes, I mean, being prepared for the thousands of units that will probably go out. I mean, on our end, I think we're planning for upwards of 200,000 units being sold. That's a ton of units. It's a ton of different travel centers. And so it's difficult to gauge. And if you're wrong, plus or minus 10%, obviously that's a very large impact. So it's really just about analyzing the numbers. And I mean, if you reach out to myself or Gordon or your sales manager or anything like that, I mean, we can kind of help have those conversations with you so you can kind of get more prepared of how it will work for your individual location.
And this is Derek, and I think the other thing that's important is while you have a representation in store, we also want to make sure that we're attracting and engaging them and informing them and educating them around the products. So I think one is reminding about that date, and that's why how we approach the merchandising is making them aware of the date, but then not only making them aware of the date, but then helping educate around the options that are available so that they have a better understanding of what it is. You know, pro drivers are in the stores frequently throughout the day, throughout the week, and having that information there in a variety of locations from the entrance of the door all the way into even the logbook section as it currently exists is going to help drive that purchase and hopefully that conversion sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and so one more point, because the second part of that question is until June of next year. So honestly, I expect you would sell the bulk of the units that you're going to sell for the mandate within the last month. The closer that you get to the mandate, the more units you're going to sell. After that, it's an even more interesting question because obviously there's a lot of driver turnover and there will be a need for new drivers to have the technology. With that said, I mean, technically they're supposed to have the technology before they get on the road. So does that mean that they're going to a truck stop on their personal time? I mean, maybe. Does that mean that they're going online? I mean, we just don't know. But I would expect this to continue to be a category. I just don't think that it will be to obviously the same extent as that initial surge at the time of the mandate.
Tyler, this is Jeff. One thing I'd like to add on that, you're going to have two waves, like Tyler said, near the end of this year around October, November, but that second wave is going to come in 2019 for all those drivers that have an AOBR right now that doesn't meet the mandate. They're going to have to make that switch to an ELD that meets the mandate.
A good point.
All right, I think I got one more. Oh, this is a good question. The majority of drivers are foreign. Will any of the companies have Spanish or any other languages?
Well, so I don't know the answer on the other three. I mean, I can find that out. What about, will J.J. Keller?
Tom, do you have any insight on this?
No, at this point, we're pretty much doing an English product. We haven't really looked at doing other languages at this, yet. There's been discussions, but we're not moving forward with any of that stuff at the moment. One of the issues, by the way, this is Tom again. One of the issues, by the way, that comes into play with that is when communicating with officials and the public, the driver needs to be able to do it in English. So there's that hurdle to jump when it comes to these issues.
Okay, now for real, we've gotten all the questions. Thank you everyone for participating today, and just a reminder that I will post the video and the slides for everyone on the website, and we'll email them out to you. Thank you again.